American connections to get this across the line. So that's Enda Kenny's position on this. And while this government and other governments across Europe and the American government are pushing this across the line, there's huge opposition developing over the last 2 years. And maybe Luke will make a few points I think are very important to express that. And I'll give an example. About October 2014, I heard TTIP on radio. I think it was Barry Flanagan was on one radio show in relation to explain what TTIP was, the secret deal that was going through between Europe and the US, and behind closed door, the implications of it, and all those points. And I raised it as a question, a leader's question to Joan Burton in the Chamber about October, November 2014. And in her usual reply, she leaned back on her hands with her sneer on her face and said that Ireland is an open economy, we have to have trade, and this is just one of those trade agreements. We had a meeting at Wynn's Hotel about last February, where we had a debate between Frank Hogan, who's president, I think, of the TWU, and Konstantin Gurdjieff. So that he was for it and Frank Hogan was against it. And it was a good meeting, but still, TTIP was very much off the radar of a lot of people at that stage. The unions were getting involved, they were having meetings, information meetings on it, and a lot was going on behind the scenes in relation to it. But I think two things over the last couple of weeks has really put this on the agenda again, and that is our friend here, Luke Lynn Flanagan, who went viral on a secret room in Brussels, and where the book is kept, and also Greenpeace, who released information in relation to leaked information they got on TTIP. So I think it was a moment to sort of call a meeting and support the communities who have been in this area, particularly people around the anti-war charges campaign, who've organised themselves as a community and want to push this issue out. They've been working on it for the last while. Sandra and the whole team have been linking in with different groups, ATTAC, Friends of the Earth, all the different groups that are involved in this. And they wanted to launch a campaign, a community campaign in this area, and use it as a template in other communities to try and develop a national campaign against TTIP, because in Europe there's huge opposition to this. And I'll finish on this note. A year ago, 2 years ago, there was about 64% support for TTIP in the US. A recent survey done shows that it's gone down to nearly 30%. And also in Europe, it's the same thing. It's gone down in the last year because people are going to learn more about it, are beginning to get more fearful of it, more wary of it, and demanding what the hell is going on with this trade agreement. I'll finish on this note. At the moment, there's huge battles in France with the youth workers and the state. And those battles are because Hollande and Valls want to break the trade union stronghold in the workplaces. They have very, very strong trade union conditions and pay. The reason why they want to break it is literally a run-up to transatlantic trade investment partnership. They want workplaces that are flexible, that are not strong unions, that are not there to defend their workers and their conditions and their pay. And this is what this battle is about. And that's why you're seeing in the streets of France, people, actually workers, going out and really putting it up to state and saying, we're not accepting this, we're not letting this happen. And I think we should make a message of support here tonight to those French workers in their struggle to maintain their conditions and pay in the relentless drive of corporate greed and corporate takeover of Europe. So without further ado, it's a political pleasure to welcome Luke Mink Flanagan, MEP, an Irish MEP, who has done good work on this, along with other MEPs as well, as we said, to highlight this issue. And I'd like a big, warm Dublin South Central welcome.
The first job I had there was to check whether my fly was up. Fortunately, I checked it in the middle of the speech in the European Parliament. It didn't get missed, so I'm glad you missed it. I think people are starting to wake up on this. The fact that this is a big crowd for an evening like this, I'm amazed. I love the sun normally, absolutely love the sun, but when I seen the sun shining this evening, I was disappointed. I thought people would go, and justifiably in many ways. How many evenings do I get to go out with the kids, go to the park or whatever, and it shows how important it is that you're here. When I arrived at the airport this evening, my car wouldn't start, and I have to go down and see my father this evening in the Roscommon Hospital, so I had to rent a car for the evening, and I went to Hertz Car Hire, and before I got to the desk, the guy came from out behind the desk, I kid you not what I'm telling you now, and he put out his hand, and he goes, "I hope you can stop TTIP." And I was absolutely amazed, because a month ago, you started talking about TTIP, and you said transatlantic trade. They'd have broken the 100 metres record, they'd been across the road at Lloyd's Pharmacy, and you wouldn't have been able to talk to them about it. But there has been a bit of a change. I got lucky, to be quite honest, with the video. It caught the right wave with a little bit of help from obscure places like the Rubber Bandits, who have 80,000 people following them on Twitter. It's amazing, they are politically more important for the ordinary people now than the Labour Party. And that is a fact, because this had been put out there before about the reading room, but a little bit of luck, and as a result of it, people are talking about it. And another bit of luck was, for me and for people in Ireland, was that the Greenpeace leaks came out around the same time. Actually, there were people suggesting that I leaked them. I didn't. It was just luck. But you need a bit of luck at times when you're fighting the type of people you're fighting, because they think about this all the time. It is their job to think about, how do we get this through? Where it is your job to get up in the morning, take care of your kids, and do everything you have to do in your life. And then if you get a bit of spare time, you try and fight this. So we need a bit of luck, and we've got a bit of luck. People are now listening. Now, Joan mentioned when was the first time she'd heard about TTIP. You know, it's the Transatlantic Trade Investment Partnership. The first time I heard about it was, I was sitting down in the Dáil beside Mick Wallace and Claire Daly. You've probably heard of them. And Mick Wallace wasn't concentrating on what Enda Kenny was saying, good move, and basically he had the Guardian there, and he was reading an article by George Monbiot, which you probably all have heard of at this stage, and it was going on about TTIP, and I was like, what's TTIP about? And Mick Wallace says to me, he says, I heard you were thinking of running the European elections. You want to find out, and you want to make it an issue, and you want to bring it up. And as it turns out, it is probably the biggest issue going out there at this stage. In fact, it is the biggest issue, unless you consider the possibility the European Union will fall apart and then the agreement can't happen. That would potentially be a bigger issue, but it is the big issue. And basically, what MEPs can do about it, and what we have been doing about it, is there have been initiatives in the Parliament to try and encourage the Commission to be more open about it. About a year and a half ago, there was a report put through the Parliament, and what the group I'm a member of tried to do was, we tried to have an amendment inserted into it. First of all, that the whole negotiations be stopped. They didn't vote for that, predictably enough. The next thing we tried to have put into it was that the dispute mechanism, the ISDS, would be removed. We didn't succeed on that. And I say but, careful but, because this is only a twist to try and pull the wool over your eyes. There was a change to, in a sense, to the ISDS system. They moved towards an investment court system, but in the same way as they changed the name of Windscale to Sellafield, you still have to live beside it, and it's still as dangerous as ever. It's just got a different name. And that is kind of what the MEPs had achieved. Now, I'm not trying to put myself down, I'm an MEP, but the group that I'm a member of, we have gung-ho fought against this. And there are people in my group who know more about this than me. were on the road longer on it than me, and a guy called Schultz. He is our rapporteur on it, and he has taken the complete lead on it. But unfortunately, the other groups, the EPP, which Fine Gael are a member of, and the S&D, or the Progressives as they call themselves, I don't know why, which the Labour Party were connected with, they are pretty much in favour of it. But the spin is that they have achieved change. But in fact, they have not achieved a change at all. What we've ended up with is just a different type of dispute mechanism. And why would we want this anyway, is the question. And every politician, because politicians have to be careful, you can all lynch us after we say something. You mightn't agree with us, and we've got to apparently talk about things in a way that don't scare you. So I'd start off like every other politician. I'm for trade, just in case you thought I wasn't. And that's what every politician feels they have to say. It's like every morning before you get up telling your wife, I'm all for air, just in case you didn't know. That's the bleeding obvious. What we need to discuss is what type of trade and how we do our trade. Is the trade for the benefit of multinationals, or is it ultimately for the betterment of the ordinary people? And when people say to me, are you against trade? I say no, of course I'm not against trade, but I'm against the wrong type of trade. I'm against the type of trade that ruins the planet. I'm against the type of trade that Phil Hogan was talking about when he was trying to please one of his friends from Poland at the Agriculture Committee last week, where he said, don't worry. He said, if I get my way, I'll have your apples and pears on sale in the United States of America. And if I have my way, I'll have your apples and pears on sale in Japan. And the sentence previous to that, Phil Hogan had said, I am committed to climate change. He's obviously committed to changing the climate if he wants to bring apples and pears from Poland to Japan. People in Japan can grow their own apples and pears. People in California can grow their own apples and pears. And that might sound like, sure, that's a daft thing to be doing. But at a high-level meeting, that's what they call them, at the Agriculture Committee in the European Parliament, when pushed, the Commission said, as their best foot forward, why would you want this, to a Spanish MEP from Podemos? Well, you see, dear, he said, you will be able to sell your oranges in California, and they'll be able to sell them in Spain. Now, that does not make sense. TTIP can be made sound very technical by people at times, and it can get a little bogged down to the point that people glaze over. But let's keep it simple. What is the sense of beef, oranges and apples passing each other on the high seas in the name of trade? Are we not more intelligent than that we can stop that? But they will tell you, okay, fine, if you don't agree with that, you love jobs. This is about jobs. And if you're against TTIP, you're against creating jobs. Well, that's not true either. Now, if you have to tell a lie about something, and you have to keep telling that lie, obviously, it isn't a very good story that you have to tell. And Richard Bruton has been going around telling people that there is a report out there from the European Commission, I'm sure you have to believe that, that in the best case scenario, if TTIP goes through, you will see a 0.48% growth in GDP above and beyond what we would now expect. And he has said it on numerous occasions. And then I got an invite to breakfast with Richard Bruton. And I get invites to regular breakfasts over in Brussels. And for the first while, and maybe I wasn't doing my job properly, but there's a mischievous part of me that emailed them all back going, I would have had my breakfast already. Why am